Welcome to USA Global TV and Radio, where our mission is to provide education, entertainment, hope, and inspiration. USA Global TV and Radio connects you with experts and audiences all around the world every single day to help you succeed in business and to live a richer life. Visit us at usaglobaltv.com to learn about career and life-changing training and mentoring programs like the Listening Mentor. Subscribe to our newsletter to stay informed about our special programs and offers. Discover how you can become a guest on one of our shows or a host or producer of a USA Global TV and Radio show of your very own. That's USA Global TV and Radio, where the doctor is always in.
A very, very warm welcome to you wherever you are in the world. It's Live, Learn, Teach, Inspire. It's Wednesday, and we are so excited, as always, to be introducing a phenomenal pair, two people who drive an incredible organization that the British School of Excellence has joined forces with, and I am going to be taking you on a journey with two wonderful people. But before I do so, I would love to just sort of throw it out there. You know, sometimes we've all felt that we lack clear sense of purpose or direction in our lives, and we just want to find something that can put us on the correct path and sort of unlock the best versions of ourselves. And this is exactly what we as an organization are about, is where we need to sort of really map out how we can be the best versions of ourselves and really put this map in front of us. We can draw something which is unbelievable. And this brings me to introducing you to a gentleman who I've had the privilege of the last 18 months to engage with and work with, Anthony Willoughby, who's from the United Kingdom, and he was brought up in Africa, and he's lived in many of the most remotest parts of the world, some of the most hostile parts of the world. He's lived in Japan for over 30 years, and believe it or not, he took care of the skipping rope champion in Japan. He's worked in Africa. He's got the most incredible portfolio of some of the people he's worked with. He's put maps in their hands from the likes of Bill Gates, Warren Buffett, Virgin as in the airline, and Ferrari, Dyson, NHS, you name it, to incredible organizations throughout Dubai, schools all over the place, to America. And Anthony really does bring the most inspirational technique to life and to light. And this is for everybody. This is for youngsters, for teenagers, for adults, for businesses, for executives. We can use this incredible process and system in our lives. And accompanying Anthony on this incredible journey on Live, Learn, Teach, Inspire today is an incredible lady who has really grown up in all parts of the world, has got the most incredible, air miles. Her name is Doutzen Kruithof, originally from the Netherlands, and is now based in Rwanda. And Doutzen is a coach. She's an entrepreneur. As I said, she's in Kigali in Rwanda, and she has really collaborated with some of the most incredible locals and international partners in many spheres. And her journey is really, it's about elements of her work are focused on really bringing the best out in people and giving them that ownership and giving them that direction and guidance that they need, and how to sort of kick in with some credible behaviors for teams as well as individuals. And Anthony and Doutzen, believe it or not, first met in 2015 in Narita Airport in Japan. And Anthony, I think, comes up to here on Doutzen. She's this wonderful, tall, elegant woman, and he got into conversation with her. And this really goes to share with all of us out there that one of the things that, if any of you have had the privilege or the opportunity to connect and engage with the British School of Excellence, is one person, one opportunity can make that change in your life or make that difference. So without further ado, I'd like to invite both Anthony Willoughby and Doutzen into the studio.
Philip, Hello, good evening. Thank you very much.
Warm welcome, Anthony and Dustin.
Hello.
I could talk for hours on introducing you, but I thought we've only got this wonderful short hour together, and I really want to keep it short, sweet, and give as much information as we possibly can. Anthony, again, welcome, and Dutton, welcome. What I'd love to do is I'd really love to jump straight in, if I may, if that suits you. And by the way, this is free flow, so please don't feel that it follows any specific strict form, but, you know, interrupt one another and how we can connect and engage and sort of just embrace this moment together. And what I would love to do is really ask you, Anthony, where did this start from? What is territory mapping?
I think territory mapping goes back a lot further. I mean, I think it is, school days. What are we doing at school? What is important in our lives? And I wrote a book decades ago called In Search of Inspiration. And what I was really looking for is we've got the freedom of choice to shape our own destiny. What do we need to learn about ourselves and Mother Nature if we want to really enjoy that freedom? And that has been my quest over the last 50 years. And territory mapping really was very simple. It evolved on a camel safari in Kenya. And I saw the Maasai, and I saw they had absolute substance without arrogance. And I thought, why do we have arrogance without substance? And I decided this is fascinating. What else have we lost? So I went off to the Papua New Guinea ambassador, met in Papua New Guinea embassy in Tokyo, met the ambassador and said, "Sir, what have you got that we've lost?" And he said, "Go to my village." And I'll be telling more about feathers and spears and things that I learned there. But when I got back to Tokyo, I just said, "What is the most important thing in your life?" And he simply said, "It is my territory." And he drew a map of it. And he said, "My entire life from the age of 3 is how do I protect my territory?" So I became fascinated and realized that for the first 99.9% of human existence, our identity has come from knowing the territory that we protect. And it just started to make me think, what is my territory? What does territory actually mean? And I think really the relevance is what Dowson will be talking about is really how she sees territory and how she's been able to work with people to ask them that question of what their territory is.
Fascinating. So it's something that people can really clearly draw and visualize and see, as you've shared with me in the past, what areas of their life they need to take hold of, who they surrounding them, who they sort of handling around their campfire, and which bridges do they need to cross over, which rivers, and which swamps are they handling. And, you know, Dowson, this is something I know that since you've been working alongside Anthony, you've had the opportunity to come up with some incredible analogies and material. Would you please just elaborate on what I've just asked or shared with you about, you know, crossing these territories and rivers, and who do we put around our fire?
Definitely. Yeah, when I first heard Anthony's stories, I was fascinated by the liveliness of it and how much sense it naturally made. And coming out of a corporate world and completely different models that we're working with, everything that he spoke about seemed to resonate and very intuitively, easily understandable. And as I started working with his methodology myself, being part of a small team in Kenya, and I started studying NLP on top of my coaching, I started to really understand why it was so powerful. And there might be many reasons for it that I haven't figured out yet, or that I haven't done any research or research about. But, you know, there's a power in thinking about your territory from the perspective of drawing it, reflecting on the rivers to cross, the mountains to climb, as it helps you to take a bit of distance from your life, from your current situation, maybe even from the goals that you have, where you're heading, where do you come from, and to then use these metaphors to contemplate on what is actually going on, what is in front of you, what do you need to overcome. And the metaphors other than the power of metaphors in general, if you also start drawing them, contemplating and discussing them with others, it makes it this natural language that others intuitively understand. And you'll be able to come up with a solution as you have a bit of a perspective, a bit of a distance to your situation. And it just seems to naturally resonate with people. Sometimes, when you're with people who are near a coast and they have no mountains. I'm from a country with 0 mountains. Now I live in a country of 1,000 hills. Some of them you see behind me. So not always all metaphors that we use resonate with others. So there's a freedom and playfulness in this tool that people can adapt to who they are, to what resonates with them. And maybe that is for now the first thing I can say about that, if that makes sense.
It makes huge sense, because it's what people can identify with and what resonates with them, and certain, not, it's exactly as you said. If I sort of said, hey Dutson, you know that the bar one is an amazing chocolate and you've never tried it before, how are you going to know it's an amazing chocolate? So I hear you, and it's finding what opens doors for people or what resonates with people. Anthony, going back to you on this next question, in just sort of expanding and elaborating on what Dutson was sharing there, would you expand on how one sort of goes about putting one in place, and what are some of the really key elements?
Absolutely. I think one thing I would quite like to say, and that is that when I mean, this is something that I've discovered. I mean, I was running team building programs in Japan and in China on the Great Wall, where we had a center. And people say, where do I belong? Where am I recognized? What is my identity? And I always thought every time I'd been with indigenous people on my journeys and expeditions, they had absolute clarity of who they were and what was important. And it was at this time that Thomson and Reuters were getting together. And a chap called Dan Vedetto said, look, I don't want a team building program. They don't know each other, so there's no point building a team. What we want is a way for them to talk to each other about what they do. So I said, well, look, can I try something? And I had no idea what people would draw. I said, look, I've always been fascinated by territory. Do you mind if I show them some maps drawn by people in Papua New Guinea and really just ask them, what is their territory? What are they hunting, protecting and growing? With no idea what they would draw. And instantaneously they could draw the mammoths they were hunting, the villages that they were protecting, and where the villages were that they were growing with their different partners. And I was just staggered that I saw these natural metaphors spring off the page. And that's really what I've been doing for the last 25 years, is to ask people to draw a map of how they see their territory. And most people will never, ever, ever have thought that inside them there is a map of rivers, mountains and swamps. But people can talk about the swamps and where they learn and where they grow and where they feel stuck. It just seems to be natural. So this really is just a way of asking people a natural question that just seems to be instinctive and ready to come out. And this is whether it's school children at the age of 11 or billionaires in America or at a homeless center in Wrexham or at in an executive group at Ferrari. Everybody can talk about their villages, the mountains, and I've just found it quite staggering and fascinating that everybody can talk about this.
Amazing. I just love that analogy, and the fact that you bring two powerhouses together and you get they're able to map that out and come together and start on a sort of a platform. They all knew what each other's maps were, what they were hunting, protecting, gathering, and who's around their fire. Dutson, once you sort of took the reins of supporting Anthony in this wonderful journey of creating maps and this sort of understanding what the Nomadic Business School is all about, I'd love you to share with us how you've incorporated this mapping into your life, but also I know as an organization, we are now working together to incorporate the mapping and the journey into our material, because we can then join the dots and it makes so much sense and brings it to life and brings it really into perspective.
Yeah, thank you. Well, I guess the first thing that after Anthony explained like how he started working with this and what it did to people and the team that he was working with, one important thing that this tool brings is simplification. Whether or not you're in business or in life, life can be pretty complex, and this tool helps to kind of bring down that complexity to simplicity and to a way of which you feel like you can almost, it becomes tangible, it becomes possible, you can grasp it again, you can oversee your territory now because it's on one map. And so if you ask me like how have you used it, this is one of the kind of key angles that I take with it, or cues that I listen for when I speak with other people. If there's a need for simplification, territory mapping is a great tool. Now, there's also something about the power of having a vision, or making a vision that sometimes is a strategy or an idea, to make it visual. And when you have that on paper and you start seeing where you're heading, it becomes easier to explain it to other people. So ways I've used it, I started working with this, as I mentioned, as part of a small team in Kenya. We were working with family businesses, or kind of community-driven businesses which were growing, and the ownership, the owners, the family were kind of having trouble handing over authority and ownership to others as they were growing. When we started using territory mapping, they were able to explain their vision, what their strategy was, what they were actually aiming for with this business, but they could also see how their staff was, how the teams were experiencing the business. Not only the business, but also the challenges, what they were seeing in the market, opportunities. And with sharing maps together with each other, people started understanding each other's perspectives much better. And they started developing this common language, like, okay, we have to hunt that mammoth, that big mammoth out there, or this is our river of miscommunication that we need to cross, or there's a mountain of bureaucracy that is stifling us. So it allowed for just clarity, simplification, understanding each other, and then prioritizing. So that was how I started working with it. But as a coach, I also love using it with people individually. And, I go about that quite intuitively. I don't have a fixed moment in a coaching process when I use it. It really depends on the situation. But it can be at the start of a coaching program, letting somebody draw how they got to where they are today, or let somebody draw of what their current situation is, or let them draw how they see the future or a certain goal they want to achieve. So there's different ways that you can go about it. Also, when there's decision making going on, it can be a great moment, or after a couple of insights, like how will you now integrate this into your life? So I know we're focusing on territory mapping here, but all of the different symbols and metaphors that already kind of crossed in this conversation, you can use as specific themes or modules or sessions, like a mountaineering session or navigating a swamp session, or there's this beautiful stuff about I will not complain, which is part of Anthony's stories. And but so there's a lot of richness that comes out of a map that you can then work with. So those are a couple of ideas and ways that I've been working with it.
Absolutely brilliant. Absolutely. Anthony, is there anything that you would like to add at this point to what Dawson was sharing, or may we continue?
I think I can add a little bit. I just think it is just wonderful to run a mapping session. I've been doing this for 25 years, but it is still an absolute privilege just to ask people, so what is happening in your territory? Draw a map of your world. And obviously there are many visualizations one can do. But, you know, when you actually have a Maasai coming in and talking and saying, this is how you look after the cattle, this is what you do. And people can start, I believe, to tap into the humility, the humanity, and ultimately really understanding who they are, because it just removes all of that jargon and people can't draw what's not important. So it's just very, very versatile for starting great conversations. And I think ultimately, what do? We help people have great conversations based on mutual trust and respect. That's it. So thank you for asking me for add a little bit, but I hope that adds a tiny bit to it. Thank you.
I'm going to actually keep you there, because in many of our meetings and conversations, Anthony, there are two areas that I'd like to bring into play here. The first one is, I know it's had the most profound effect on school children being able to map their journey in their lives and sharing that with their parents. It's been an amazing tool for communication, for parents to really, really understand their children more and what the children are looking to do. That's number one. And number two, which I wanted to sort of run through with you, because it's so linked, is when we were in conversation a couple of months ago, you had spent some time with a neurologist, a neuroscientist, and he went and he delved deeply into what we're unlocking here by sort of going back in sort of looking at the very simplistic idea of what are we protecting, what are we focusing on, you know, what all our territory. And this, he said, it's unlocking a part of the brain that's really almost gone dormant.
Yes, and I think actually I'd like Doutzen to be the first one. I will then definitely answer the other part of it. But Doutzen knows a little bit more about the neuroscience behind this. And yes, we've got some fabulous documents. I've even had an email from a fellow who won the Nobel Prize for Medicine, a chap called Edward Moser, who's discovered there's a GPS in the brain. And he sent me an email saying, yes, I think what you're doing might be tapping into this part of the brain. So I think there's a lot there that we're actually tapping into, which all visuals do. But I think Doutzen, you've been looking at it more about the thoughts and the neuro whatevers that, you know, yeah.
Well, I have definitely been so fascinated about how come this can be so powerful. And when I started understanding a bit more about the not even only the mind-body connection, but the way that the brain works, neuroplasticity, how we are so driven by strategies, patterns, and the way that the brain wires and fires, and how much of our behavior and thinking pattern is almost automatic. I believe it's over 90% of our thoughts and behaviors of every day are similar or the same as the day before. Now, this is not an issue necessarily, because we need to, you know, do things automatically. Otherwise, we have to learn every day to comb our hair and to brush our teeth. But if we don't have a vision of the future, then we have that risk of being much more stuck in past ways of thinking and just patterns that drive us automatically and habitually. So that is where the mapping also connects, where you are kind of invited and inspired, also based on Anthony's stories. It's not only the drawing itself, but also being kind of through his stories, stepping back into who we have been for so many thousands of years. You know, we all can tap into that natural wisdom. That's why we call it like that. It's natural wisdom. Everybody has this in their genes. And with that natural wisdom of thinking about where you are, where you're heading, and what obstacles are on your way, if you make that visual, and you actually create that compelling vision of the future, and you see like, okay, I might head for that swamp, there might be some challenges there, but it's part of my path. There's something beyond there where I'm heading. And this really helps the brain to see opportunity, to recognize when you get there, and to become creative and create opportunity in order to continue going. So I'm definitely not a researcher or a scientist in this area. This was just from my studying of what is actually happening in this process and why is it powerful. So, Anthony, I think here, please take over from me again. And
Yeah. I certainly won't,
yeah,
venture into that area, but maybe at some time you can have Dr. Christine Johnson on talking about it. She's written a fabulous article that we could let you have, linking territory mapping directly to the neuroscience. But Philip, you talked about me working with parents and students and teachers, and this is actually a very, very new thing. We've actually at a homeless centre in Wrexham who work very closely with families in distress. And they have really, the parents drawing the maps and starting to talk to the students. And that has been really very successful to get them talking. But I'm working on a project now with an amazing 15-year-old from a school in Dubai with his parents. And really what we're asking is, what is the wisdom, knowledge, and education that you need to have a purposeful, well-lived life? And to actually get parents and students to think about what does that actually mean, and what is that progression of the skills you need in order to cross your swamps of insecurity and lack of confidence. And we are working with, as I say, the school and the parents. But one thing I found absolutely fascinating is to involve parents talking to teachers and students is almost heresy. The schools seem absolutely terrified that we're actually going to start asking, so what is the point of an education? How is the education going to give the students a sense of purpose and identity? And why don't we get the parents to talk about what their sense of purpose and identity is, what they thought when they were the age of the student about life, and what was success? So this is a really exciting program. We're going to work with school children in Dubai and their parents and teachers. We're going to do it with the Maasai in Kenya. We're going to do it with a chap from Nepal who's the first from Gurkha to join the SAS with his daughter and their teachers who are based in Cambridge in England. And at the same time, we're going to do it with people who've never left their village. Because really, this is what we want to ask people is, what does it really mean to have a life that you can be proud of? What does that look like? And I asked this literally of 1,000 students in Dubai a month ago, from year 6 to year 12. And every single student could draw those rivers, those mountains, those swamps. And that's now going to be used with their communication with the school to start developing those life skills that they can start seeing what the vision is way beyond university to have a meaningful life. And why don't we talk to our parents about that, or to our children about really how do we contribute and where does our identity come from? So sorry, that was a bit of a long answer, but this is an area that I am absolutely passionate about, as is Doutzen. And we really, really would love to work with people who want to try to find out what it means to have a purposeful life. And therefore, what is the point of an education, I suppose, which is a very heresy question to ask, because it seems, the edifice of the $5 trillion a year education business perpetrates itself unless you ask people, what is the point of an education? When you do that, the entire edifice is shaking.
you're on
Philip,
mute, Philip.
You're unmuted.
There's a lovely story you told me many, many years ago about your housemaster walking you through the halls of school. What were his words to you?
Oh, I remember it very, very, very well. I was 17 and he looked at me and he said, Anthony, let us talk about your future. And let's start with that you're far, far, far too stupid to go to university. And I remember at that moment thinking, wow, freedom. And then he said, would I like to go on an exchange to a high school in America, and it absolutely changed my life. And I think this is where we've got to realize that our passion and purpose comes from one or two conversations and happenstance, and finding oneself in a new environment. I mean, I took the Trans-Siberian Japan. I arrived there by boat. I was 22. I knew no one. And about the third morning in this little tiny hotel I was in, there's a tannoy on the system saying, Mr. Willoughby, your mother's on the phone. So I went, good heavens, well, my mother doesn't know where I am. So I went down, picked up the phone. The woman said, hi, David, how are you? And I went, no, it's Anthony Willoughby here. What does David do? Oh, David runs an English school. So I tracked down David Willoughby, and I had a job within a week teaching in an English school. And I think, life is just this happenstance of being passionate, and it's having that. We've got to cross those rivers, climb those mountains. We've got to have this momentum moving forward. So I'm not sure whether that's really answering your question, but it is trying to get across this fantastic excitement that I think looks at a map, looks at terrain, looks at what's possible.
No, I just love that story, and it's very connected into this journey. And I know we could talk for hours, and you could share millions of stories with our listeners and viewers. And they really are amazing journeys and stories. And keep tuned. And just so you know, do stay tuned, because at the end of today's Live, Learn, Teach, Inspire program, we're going to make an announcement and offer a complimentary opportunity. Doubtson, I will come back to you, but it's something you did mention earlier. You mentioned something about I will not complain philosophy, and how we can develop that. And this is something, again, through drawing your own territory map. We can obviously work out where we're going and what we need to achieve in our lives. But Anthony, just elaborate on this I will not complain vision, focus, and philosophy.
Well, I will do. I think keep Doubtson there and keep the screen there. Yeah, I mean, that literally, I'm not a planner. I'm nothing. And I'm not an explorer. I just sort of enjoy uncertainty. And I met the Papua New Guinea ambassador, and the next time I had a map of Papua New Guinea, and he drew a line across it, literally like that. And I saw that there were villages, and I was overweight. So I thought there'll be food in the villages, but there probably won't be any wine. So he headed off into the jungles of Papua New Guinea with 24 bottles of wine, extra porters to carry the wine, and absolutely no food. Not very good planning. But one chap on this trip complained, and he complained, and he complained. And what I saw is complainers completely destroy morale. They will never go to the leader. They will always go around undermining. Do you think Anthony's lost? Do you think the porters will kill us? And they gradually undermine the entire essence. And really, complainers fundamentally are cowards. They really, really are. And I realize that you just can't really have cowards on trips. You want people to say, if something's wrong, they come up with a solution. So for future expeditions, everybody had to sign a document saying, I will not complain if I get eaten or trodden on by animals, if I extra porters. Because I think we have to realize we cannot be a victim in our lives. The only thing we can be is a victim of our own stupidity. Now, that's obviously a fairly arrogant statement, and people are victims, and it is unfortunate. But I think somehow, and that's been my philosophy, of living life as positively as I can do. And Doubtson has certainly been involving I Will Not Complain in her programs. And I think you can see how it sort of engages people, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's great. People love IWNC. I will not complain. When they hear about that story first, everybody enjoys it. They laugh, but also it makes them think. Like, actually, what are the things that we are, or that I am complaining about, and that actually do not bring me anything, and they just cost me energy, negative energy. What do I stop complaining about? And it can be great to start drafting an I will not complain declaration, listing the things that you stop complaining about, and kind of in in relation to that, in coaching, you know, what you, I think those of you who listen, who are coaches, we know those stories we sometimes have about who we are as well. These narratives about how we see ourselves, what we can or cannot do, and especially the parts of what we cannot do or who we believe we are not, those can also fall into that category. And so what are we willing to maybe revisit, rewrite? And that is a big part of the whole mindset management. I love to incorporate the I will not complain story into mountain sessions and into reflection on what are the narratives, what are the things that you say to yourself to let go of that. It's very powerful and simple, but made a bit fun with. And Anthony, I mean, you're getting to know him a little bit perhaps by watching him, but it is true. Anthony does not complain, and he has a lot of energy. And I'm the complainer in our relationship, and so I'm very aware of that, and I try to catch myself regularly to not become that person that has to write a long declaration. But it's good stuff.
Yeah.
Excellent. Wonderful, wonderful overview and explanation.
But the important thing on I will not complain, just a final thing, is understated observations are permissible. So one chap called Stephen Venables, who climbed Everest, the first Brit without oxygen, he had a couple of his toes he lost through frostbite, and you see him with his I will not complain t-shirt on. So if you've lost a couple of toes, you're allowed to say it's a bit chilly out here, really. I've really got that's a quote. So understated observations are essential. And at the same time, you've also got to come up with solutions. I mean, we're not saying do not complain, do not just be humble. No, come up with a solution that is better than in dealing with the situation.
Amazing. You know, in the research that we do as an organization, the World Economic Forum has come up with a list of 10 things that we need for the future of work, they put it. Now, these are skill sets we've needed all our lives. I don't know why they put for the future, but as we all know, I think the world is in a very strange place in many senses of the word. And we've obviously had a huge turbo boost of either artificial intelligence, or you can call it intelligence assistance, however you want to look at it. The world has become very, very digital, and really thinking about what they sort of shared, they should have thought about how they're going to sort of get this message across, because these are life skills. These are not just work skills and day-to-day skills. They combine into one. And actually, the interesting thing is, of all of those 10 pointers that they pointed out, and I'll run through them if I can remember them. Firstly, in no particular order: emotional intelligence, having a creative mindset, having accepting change, being able to accept change. Number 2, diversity, or another one is diversity intelligence, leadership skills, communication, empathy. What else was there on there? And only one of those was technology. And this is exactly when you talk about the 9 skill sets, those are all focused really how you can implement those into your maps.
I think so, and I think this might be a relevant moment, actually, Doubtson, for you actually to show the wheel, because I think this is really the different skills. I mean, if you don't think it is, then don't. But I just think that it really is, because what we're looking at is the visible and the invisible, and the different skill sets of. You've got to have the clarity of what you need to do, but then you've got to have it in your heart. And that, I think, is relevant for what we've been talking about at the moment. Doubtson, do you think that's relevant for you to show the wheel?
Yeah, but perhaps before we show that, would you want to say a few words about how this came into, how it was developed? Because I don't want to take the credit for that. Or get the credit for that.
I mean, literally about 15 years ago, I sat down with Emmanuel with some of the elders, and I was looking for what are the responsibilities of the warrior, the women, and the elder. And we came up with a wheel, which I've got, and I can still show you the different colors of what we actually wanted from them. And I sort of thought, it was fascinating, the sort of the balance of a cross. And then I probably spent about 15 hours with Emmanuel. Emmanuel Mankura is an amazing Maasai who's a very good friend of Doudson's as well. And we spent time in his community, and we looked at what is the sort of ultimate essence of what is an education? What does it mean to be balanced? What does it mean to have purpose and identity? And for, I would say, 15 hours at least of asking him, so what does the wheel sort of fit? What are the different elements? And it's really around the visible and the invisible. And it's still a work in progress, but we've sort of tried to synthesize it down to a way that I think it makes some sort of sense, and we'd love your thoughts on that as well. So Doudson, please.
Yeah, if we can show the wheel on the screen, then yeah, perfect. So in the outer ring, you see hard knowledge, wealth, visible leadership, community strength and culture, and invisible leadership. And then you see a top part and a bottom part. The top part is black and the bottom part is red. And the idea is that the top part of this wheel is about the visible part of leadership as it is written. There's a couple of things that you really need to know, to figure out, to have clarity on. And then the lower part of the wheel is what drives it. If the lower part of the wheel is in place in somebody's leadership, whether it's personal leadership in life, whether it's leadership towards, for your organization, your community, your school, if the upper part is driven by the lower part, it makes it much more sustainable, durable, and it builds trust. So if very briefly or quickly, I try to do quickly, but it's like spokes that run through the middle of the wheel. And in the middle, you see people around the fire. Now, if we start just on the right side of the first red one, leading by example, just on the community strength and culture. If a leader, or if you are leading by example and you spoke across towards the territory, if you navigate your territory through leading by example, it makes it sustainable and you build trust. Then the next one, if the way that you are protecting your wealth in your community, in your life, in your family, if that is done with a sense of humility and humanity, it builds trust and it is sustainable. If you manage the threats and if you face them with courage and inspiration, you are a trusted leader. You want to inspire people on how to navigate challenges. Growth, if growth is handled and looked after, and if that is what we are after with in mind the collective first and not the individual, it builds trust and it is sustainable. Then, so on the left side here, territory protecting, you have to know what your threats are, where the growth is, and you have to know when you need to innovate or adapt. When you do that with keeping your purpose in mind and who you really are, whether that's individual again, or that of your family, that of your school, that of your organization, that of your community, your innovation and adaptation is coming from that sense of purpose and identity. It's much more sustainable. People have their individual journeys and how they then have to navigate that adaptation. If that is done with respect for each other, with pride in who you are, and with respecting differences in timing, it builds trust again. People will follow you. And then there's the migration plan. How are we actually going to get where we need to be? If you do that as a leader, keeping in mind that everything is connected. So when you go left here, what are you leaving behind on the right? Or if you make a decision for this department, how does it affect the other parts in the system? So having an eye for interdependence is really, that builds again a sustainable migration plan. So this is just to there's much more to this, of course, but the idea is that even though you need to know the upper parts of the wheel, I mean, every leader needs a level of clarity in life as to where you are, where you're going, and what you're expecting on the way. But if it's backed up and if it comes from these elements on the bottom side of the wheel, then you are a leader that people will follow. So we call this the natural leadership wheel, because it feels very, it comes from the development of Emmanuel, other nomadic advisors, so many conversations we've had around this, and it's just simplifying and tapping into what you were mentioning, Philip, about what we need in life going forward.
Add something to that, Philip. The top part is really what you can draw on the map. That's what people will draw quite easily. We need a migration, we need to move. But then the most important thing are then the questions. So how will it help the community? Where do we need to be humble? Where can we earn that seat? How do we build the trust? So that the top part is easy for people to talk about. The bottom part is really what is the emotion that we need to build a community that's got that resilience, that level of trust, purpose, and identity. And that's what we're going to be talking to teaching children about, is really looking at what does that bottom part of the wheel actually mean.
That is absolutely fascinating, and it's just very clear to follow and understand. And I've actually got a map in my hand, and I know you give each person a map with a lot of material, and you give them the guidance and steering. So you don't just throw a map at them and tell them to draw something. You give them the most wonderful guidance and steering into taking them into this journey and unlocking, this creative mindset. And really something that for me is a question that you often ask people: what did you see for the first time? And I'd love you just to elaborate on that, Anthony, just to give me a little bit more flesh on the bone when you poise that question, when you sort of point that question in the direction of the people drawing maps.
Well, I think, and I'd like Dowson to add to this, is very much when you ask someone to draw a map, they have no idea what they're drawing. And again, to people who haven't drawn a map or anything else, it probably sounds like a very strange sort of language, but everybody can draw a map. And once they've sort of drawn it, half an hour or so, you then sort of say, so what's not on your map? Where do you feel most comfortable on your map? Where is the sun shining? What is the climate? You could start to have this sort of fascinating conversation that people get those different insights. And please, Dowson, would you like to add to that, please?
Well, on the question of what do you first see or what do you see when people draw maps, it's interesting how everybody has like a different style of going about their maps and how they come to create it. But in the end, if people start sharing maps, there's so many commonalities, whether it's a mountain for the one and like a desert for the other, or sometimes it's a kitchen where ingredients are missing, or where so any metaphor can work. And sometimes people feel stifled by the fact that they might expect or think that a certain map is expected of them. So they think they have to, achieve something specific, while that's pretty hard to do. So, and that is at the same time the beauty of this process, because it brings out people's reality. What you often see, for example, in teams, when there's a lot of internal things going on that are actually preventing them from being in the field and in the market, often on such maps you don't see any clients, and that is a powerful conclusion on itself. It means that there are things to sort out internally before you can even start thinking about the outside territory. So no matter what a maps brings out or what it looks like, there's always a story, there's always a narrative, and that is the fun of also facilitating such sessions. And Anthony always asks very powerful questions, so it's great to see that in action.
Anthony, anything that you would like to expand on at this point in time with regard to just taking us?
No, I mean, I think the universality of it's wonderful. I remember once doing some mapping, the very first mapping session we ran with a friend of mine called Chris Howe in Kenya, when we were getting the Maasai to draw the maps. And we sort of sat down with the Maasai, and Chris sort of drew his map. He's from England, it runs a coaching business, and he sort of drew a river and a sort of a village, and there was a wizened finger of the Maasai sort of came out and pointed at something and said in Maasai, "That does not make natural sense to me." And I remember Chris going, that's a part of the map that I really don't understand. So I think, it's when you have a Maasai can help you, ask you the questions, or when you're in a room where you've got literally Korean, Chinese, Japanese, and people talking in English on different tables about the rivers, mountains, and swamps. About 3 years ago, I did International Territory Mapping Day, and we got everybody. We had people in Mongolia, New Zealand, and Africa talking about what were the rivers that they were trying to cross. Everybody had that river. So it really is trying to create that absolute universal common language that I think is what we need. And I think this is what we want to try to do for businesses, is have this language that what is the swamp, what is the river? And you have the different experts, because we've all spent our lives in business or in life going through those swamps, and that's where we've got our credentials from.
And that's for sure where, I know for a fact that through mapping you can really get yourself so out of deep water, so to speak, or become unstuck, or we get so stuck in our lives, and we sort of don't come up for air. And it is about pausing and looking at how we can sort of map. Even if the past hasn't been so good, we can sort of really start to plan an amazing future for ourselves through this sort of mapping. And there's something I'd like to sort of share with all the listeners and people who've had the time, and thank you so much for joining us, is we would love to invite you to a personal growth and success session in November. Anthony is going to be putting on a 6-hour workshop where he'll be introducing, and creating an innovative workshop that Anthony and Doutzen have been rolling out to different organizations for quite some time now. But it's going to focus on, looking at our profound personal growth and learn how our universal wisdom framework really taps into ancient wisdom, enabling deep self-discovery and personal empowerment. It's going to focus on effective problem solving, really allowing us to, find a powerful tool to overcome challenges and break through those barriers, both again personally and professionally, focusing on a holistic perspective where we can gain really amazing insights into achieving a holistic life perspective and again fostering clarity in your life goals. Then there's going to be a focus on personalized growth plans. In other words, discover how to create customized growth plans that align with your unique aspirations and your purpose. And it really is about coming together, the global community, becoming part of a worldwide movement that we are so passionate about and focused on. And we can share with one another on this platform, vision, connecting with like-minded individuals and building up the most phenomenal network. And this is a really wonderful opportunity. It's 100% complimentary. It's an opportunity for you to sign up. We're going to be offering 2 sessions. Those 2 sessions, one will be at 10 a.m. GMT, which we would have stepped back in time by 1 hour, and our clocks changed at the end of October. So it'll be 10 a.m. GMT. We will be sharing a link shortly where, if that's your time zone, you can click on and sign up. And then there'll be a 6 p.m. GMT for people waking up in LA, California, or parts of the States and that neck of the woods. So I really would encourage anyone who would love to know more, would love to be inspired, would love to sort of gain some phenomenal insight into allowing your imagination, your vision, your clarity, your purpose, everything unfold in a mapping session. And Anthony, as I said, will be taking you into this journey on the 8th of November. Anthony, is there anything that you would like to add to that?
Yeah, on November, the one will actually be probably a little bit briefer. And what we really would love to do is to let people meet people who have done the mapping sessions, so they can ask questions, they can see what they'd like to do, what they'd like to learn, and then talk to people who have actually been using it, so they can then see it, and then they can sign up for a longer program. But we will certainly let everybody know about this and have it. Doubtson, please, over to you.
Oh, I agree with you. Indeed, there's the free webinar, and then a longer program later where you can experience all of this. Yes, please. I heard that there's a question. A good question. Go ahead.
Yeah. Philip, is there a... No.
What do you suggest to someone who is insecure on drawing a map? So this is indeed a very great question, as many people have that initially, and we know that. And you, Philip, yeah.
Yeah.
So we acknowledge that, and we call it the wobble, or at least that's the word I learned for it. Like, there's this moment where you're about to start, and you're like, "Oh no, what am I supposed to do?" So just knowing that everybody or many people struggle with that, that's the first thing. The other thing is then to just start somewhere. And usually a powerful start can be to just draw a river and first think about that. What is that river that I need to cross? And give yourself a bit of time. We often give people some reflection questions. So there'll be a couple of questions to ponder on even before somebody starts drawing. And then depending on the setting, when we're live with people, we'll also be walking around and supporting where needed, or coming up with some ideas on how you could get started. But really, in the end, everybody gets over that initial stage. So a bit of faith and trust in the process. Anthony, what would you say to that?
Oh, I mean, leave me up with Doubtson there. I mean, look, we spend our entire lives being insecure, worried. Are people going to throw bananas at me when I've done a map, talking at a mapping session? We spend our lives being terrified of what people are going to say and think. I mean, I still worry about it, but I'm sort of used to my swamps that I find myself in. So we're not in any way being judgmental, and people just sort of think about how they want to interpret it, how they want to talk about it. And ultimately, when they draw a swamp, they can really show the life experience. And when we do it at homeless centers, etc., people see they have crossed the rivers. We have been brave. We do have people round our fire. We can move together. And it just lets people share that anxiety when suddenly the elephant in the room pops out and everybody goes, "Oh, what a relief. I thought I was the only person." So we're not in any way being subjective or trying to understand. It's just literally we all are terrified. That's the human condition. And the map just creates a conversation.
And if I may add, I don't know if the question also came from perhaps a perspective of teams, companies, families, or if that is part of the insecurity, like who might I be sharing my map with or talk about my map to? That can add some additional insecurity. So when we are working with a team or a company, we definitely prep also with the chief, They have to be very aware of their support in this and be super careful. Or we sometimes beforehand, before people start drawing, we highlight some of the sensitivities and we acknowledge that this is known, that this is difficult in your team. We know that this is a swamp in your organization, so to kind of clear the air already, that those things are free to come up, because they're already acknowledged, true, and there's always the courage of people amazes me, and it opens a lot of conversation, and especially through the safety of a drawing and a metaphor. You don't have to say like, you didn't do this well, your department didn't do this well, but there can be a safe metaphor to explain things through, and so that helps as well in honesty.
And it's completely emotionally engaging. As we say, you can never unsee a map, and people cannot draw detail on a map, and they can't draw what's not important. So it's just another platform for having a really lovely conversation, as we would have done sitting under a tree, talking about how our cattle are and where the rains are coming, and grass, as we've been doing for thousands and thousands of years, and where our territory is and where we feel strong, and how we can earn respect from other people by our contribution.
Love it, love it, love it, love it. And I know, as I said, we're talking of cows, we could talk till the cows do come home, and it would be wonderful. I know the hour has shot past. I do find, and I hope everyone out there found this totally insightful and something that has sort of triggered an amazing part of your creative brain, your thought process, and that you will have the opportunity to join us. I know we've got Dr. Jacqueline will pop up the registration, which is Dr. Jacqueline in the chat there. It's the free event on the 8th of November. Please, we will be emailing this out as well. Please make contact with us as well at hello@thebritishschoolofexcellence.com or leanne@thebritishschoolofexcellence.com, and we will furnish you with all the details well in advance. We're then going to be running some incredible programs later in the year as well. So it's with huge energy, excitement, and passion that we bring this to you. And I want to thank you, Anthony and Doutzen, for your valuable time, for just scratching the surface and giving us an insight into the power of putting your vision, focus, your energy, your thoughts, your clarity, everything onto paper, and creating a map where you can see your future, and it's not set in stone. That's the beautiful thing about it. That's the wonderful thing about this. So I thank you all so much. Thank you to the audience, Dr. Jacqueline, as always, for producing the show for us. And we are at the other end of an email, a telephone. If any of you would like to engage and speak to any of us within the team, please feel free to do so.
Well, thank you very, very much indeed, Philip. Thank you for inviting us. Much appreciated. And it's a fabulous partnership, and I'm sure Doutzen says the same.
Thanks a lot. This was great. Thank you for having us here.
Yeah.
Looking forward to the future with you.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Anthony. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Bye.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, that is it. Over the next few days, that will be available to watch again. And secondly, please pop the 18th of October in your diaries. 18th of October is, we have got the most incredible person who is originally from Afghanistan, and she is going to be our guest on Wednesday, the 18th of October. Don't miss it. It's going to be, hopefully, well, not hopefully, I know, because I've met this amazing person, life-changing journey and experience to share with everyone. So please mark the 18th of October, and that will be at 6 p.m. British Summer Time, and we look forward to seeing you. Dr. Jacqueline, thank you so much.
This program is brought to you in part by the British School of Excellence and founder, Mr. Philip Sykes, building confidence, changing lives. Do you share our view that etiquette is a set of modern life skills that are essential for personal and professional success? Join us as an etiquette coach and change people's lives through the power of etiquette and manners.
The last few days have been really amazing. I had a trainer course from the British School of Etiquette.
And I must say it's been one of the best decisions I've ever made and one of the best investments I've made in my own training and development.
Now, words alone will not describe the transformation and the positive path that I have traveled with the British School of Etiquette.
I found I learned a lot from the lessons this time I came.
The last few days with the British School of Etiquette have been fantastic.
And what I've learned now is really beyond my expectations.
This is the most rewarding experience and the best investment I have made this year.
It was just great. I learned so much, and when I go back to Belgium, I will incorporate a lot of it into my day-to-day life and business.
It's been absolutely wonderful for the whole week that we were here?
I feel transformed, and I feel like blowing a trumpet and tell people, come and do this school. This class is the best. This is the best school ever.
You should take it. It will change your life immediately.
I am now able to teach other people how to bring the best of them.
Thank you.
Thank you, BSc.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you to our clients for their testimonials on the Train the Trainer program. Our exponential and global growth is so significant that we've evolved from the British School of Etiquette to the British School of Excellence, where we're investors in people. Let us invest in you and your career. Contact us to become an etiquette coach. Go to thebritishschoolofexcellence.com. Start your career and elevate your success today.